Man. Yeah, baby. Let's get it started. Hello, 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 hello. Welcome to the Jamal Show. My name is Jamal. First, let me start off. Say that my views do not represent the views of this station. The station and I are two different entities. So please remember that. Also, you can write us at jamalshowradio@gmail.com. jamalshowradio@gmail.com. This is the Jamal Show. Look us up on Facebook if you can. We are looking for sponsors. We would very much like to advertise your product and service on the Jamal Show. Welcome, everybody. Thanks for joining me on this Saturday morning. It is a beautiful morning. No rain yet. The skies are a little dark in front of Hartford and the 33 surrounding counties. We have a lot to cover today. Let me tell you a little story. I'm going to start off with a little story. And after that, I have a question for you. But this is going to be a little story that you are the main character of. You were walking down the street and you see a bank robbery. Or basically someone committed a crime, right? Now, the bank robber that you saw rob the bank with your own eyes beats the case. A couple of weeks later, they get off. Here's the question. When they get off, does that mean the bank robbery never happened? Does that mean that you didn't actually see what you saw? What if someone told you that you didn't actually see the bank robbery? Or that it wasn't an actual bank robbery? Now, you saw this with your own eyes. A guy walks out of the bank with bags of money, shooting at cops, blah, blah, blah. He gets away. Weeks later, he gets off. You see him walking down the block again, a free man, right? Now, what am I getting at here? Well, the difference between a legal fact and an actual fact is what I'm getting at here. Someone has told you that you haven't seen any crimes in progress when in fact you have. Now, if you didn't get it yet, I'm talking about Bob Mueller, folks. He's the special counsel who was investigating crime boss Trump and his presidential campaign for the last 2 years. Mueller has been looking at whether crime boss Trump colluded with the Russians and whether he obstructed the investigation into his campaign dealings with the Russians. He's released his report a week ago at 5:02 p.m. on a Friday, which to me is a bad sign. That's a bad sign because if you have a report that you're really proud of, you release it on a Monday. You don't release it on a Friday. Things that are released on Friday at 5:02 p.m., generally speaking, are not things that you're proud of. That's what politicians want to hide. When they want to hide something, they release it at 5:02 p.m. on a Friday. That's called the Friday dump. But here's the thing. We still haven't seen the report. In fact, all we've seen is a summary by the Attorney General, William Barr. Now, we've just been updated that the report is apparently 300 to 1,000 pages. and Bob Barr's summary was apparently 4 pages. And here's the spoiler alert. You did not see a bank robbery. That's what Attorney General William Barr wants to tell you. Bill Barr, who was appointed by crime boss Trump, says crime boss Trump did nothing wrong. So this is an employee telling us that his boss did nothing wrong, just in case you were curious. That's a spoiler alert. Talk about a conflict of interest. Send all the investigators home, says William Barr. That's the interpretation of Mueller's report. But let me break it down a bit. Mueller looked at 2 things, collusion and obstruction. On collusion, William Barr says that Mueller found no evidence of collusion. You know what that means? That means that you are the guy who saw the bank robbery that didn't happen. You never saw a Trump Tower meeting between crime boss Trump's son, his campaign team, and some Russian representatives at Trump Tower to talk about Hillary Clinton's stolen emails. You never saw crime boss Trump dictate a cover-up lie from Air Force One about that meeting, telling his son to say it was about Russian adoption. I didn't believe that the minute I heard it. Donald J. Trump worried about adoption of anybody. If you had heard about that, then it could be considered evidence of collusion. But Barr says Mueller found no evidence. So it must not have happened, right? The Republicans changing their policy on Russia when crime boss Trump got to the convention, that must not have happened. If it would have, that would have been evidence. Mueller says there is no evidence, according to Attorney General Barr. And whatever happened to Roger Stone's communications with WikiLeaks? WikiLeaks is a known Russian operational front. Are we supposed to forget that a Trump campaign advisor was in contact with WikiLeaks while they were publishing Hillary's stolen emails? There were over 100 meetings between Trump campaign officials and representatives for Russian billionaires. Then after the campaign, crime boss Trump fires Comey and brags about it to the Russians in the Oval Office. That's not evidence? Why do we need Robert Mueller to confirm what we saw with our own eyes? This is what all of crime boss Trump's enablers want you to believe. You did not see what you saw during the campaign and administration. You didn't see crime boss Trump publicly call for Russia to attack Hillary's emails. You've already forgotten the way crime boss Trump kissed Putin's ass in Helsinki. You never found out about the planning for the building of Trump Tower Moscow while in a presidential campaign. He was negotiating a building with Putin's allies in Russia while he was campaigning and saying he had nothing to do with Russia. If you don't get what I'm saying, the evidence of wrongdoing has always been in front of your faces. We didn't need anybody to validate it for us. We didn't need a grand jury to tell us that Trump did wrong. What Mueller was really looking for was evidence beyond a reasonable doubt. He wanted to be certain that he could win a case if it is brought against the president. He wanted to make sure that the elements of a crime were there, the specific elements. He wasn't looking for whether President Trump did wrong or not, because we all know he did. But he's looking for something prosecutable. He did not exonerate the president. If you're confused, let me explain it this way. I put this on Facebook last week, and I find it kind of useful for explaining to people. Let's take you, for example. I'm going to make you the star of another story right quick. Let's say you sell marijuana for a living. The cops want to get you. Because after years of hustling, you're starting to make a little money doing this. But you're a very careful person, and they can't get a judge to sign off on a warrant for lack of evidence. In other words, it takes a certain amount of evidence for the cops to get a warrant to search your property. That's a constitutional ban. Now, let's say you live in Harlem or Hartford or somewhere else where the cops are more likely to violate your constitutional rights. A group of rogue cops decide to raid your house with a fake warrant. They do so. You fall for the warrant, and they find your stash. When it gets to court, the judge is going to find out that the warrant was fake. Your lawyer will move to exclude the weed as evidence. And all of a sudden, some poor prosecutor has to figure out how to prove that you're a weed dealer with no weed to show the jury. Now, most prosecutors at that point will drop the case. The prosecutor isn't dropping the case because he thinks you're innocent. He's dropping it because prosecutors hate losing cases. And without the main evidence, he's probably going to lose the case. The jury's going to think he's talking bullcrap. So generally speaking, prosecutors only bring cases they can win, especially federal prosecutors. You'll find if you do some research that they're 85% successful in convicting the people they prosecuted. Why is that? Because of the use of the grand jury. A grand jury looks at the case before the case is brought to a regular jury. So in essence, the prosecutor's proven his case twice. That's why they're so successful. So this prosecutor can only win your case against you if he can produce the weed, right? Otherwise, the jury's not going to believe him. In the case of Trump, anybody with eyes and ears and a brain knows that Trump was open and willing to meet with and collude with the Russians. Everything about the man says scumbag. There was over 100 proven meetings with Russian oligarchs during the campaign. They lied about all of them. There's nothing about his character that would tell you, oh, this man wouldn't do this. It's not like we're talking about Barack Obama here. A man who wore a tan suit, biggest crime was wearing a tan suit. They got on him. Being born in Hawaii. This man, crime boss Trump, was the first man telling us he was from Kenya. So obviously he doesn't stick to the truth, right? There's nothing about his character that would tell us he wouldn't do this, right? Plus we have all these meetings. For what? I'll tell you for what. Because he's guilty of wrongdoing, not necessarily of a crime. He's guilty of wrongdoing. In the same way that you cheating on your wife makes you guilty of wrongdoing, but not necessarily guilty of a crime. But I wouldn't nominate you for president either. In essence, we have long since found Trump's stash of weed, and we found it on national TV. Mueller is dropping the case, not because Trump is innocent. Mueller just doesn't think he can bring the legal theory of conspiracy beyond a reasonable doubt to a jury because it's such a high bar. We know evidence exists no matter what Mueller says because we saw the bank robbery with our own eyes. We have eyes and ears, and we also have flat screen TVs that have been on this case since the very beginning. That's also why the White House will fight release of this report, full release of the report, because it doesn't exonerate him. It doesn't exonerate crime boss Trump at all. Because the details may show that Trump has a serious lack of character, as we've seen many times before. Now, let's talk a little bit about obstruction really quickly, because this point angers me a little bit, if you don't think I'm already angry. As far as the obstruction charge, the report is incomplete. According to the summary by Barr, Mueller takes no stance on whether the president is guilty of obstruction. He just lists the evidence and asks AG Barr to make the decision to charge Trump, whether or not to charge him. Huh? This is like a game of hot potato. This is not straightforward at all. I thought Mueller was being paid to make that decision. Because guess what? Barr says he's not going to indict the president because he says the president cannot be indicted while in office. Surprise, surprise. Barr has always had an extended view of presidential power. In other words, the president can pretty much do whatever he wants. That's why he was hired, Barr. The truth is that Barr wasn't going to never indict the president, ever. That wasn't even part of the plan. Now, this doesn't sound like Trump is innocent. It just sounds like they don't want to indict him, right? Who didn't see that coming from 10 miles away once William Barr was put in as AG? Nobody. They had never any intention of being a threat against the president's administration. The Justice Department guidelines say that you cannot indict a sitting president. So I'm not sure that we expected from anybody, who was working on this case, that they would indict the president. Here's another question. Judging by AG William Barr's summary of the Mueller report, I have no idea why Mueller didn't subpoena the president to appear in front of the grand jury. That makes no sense to me. We know that Bill Clinton got indicted and he was forced to sit in front of a grand jury and answer questions. But what really happened there is that he didn't want it to go to the court. So he agreed to sit and answer questions. The only thing that the court has decided on is that the president must give over documents, not that he must testify. So that's an interesting turn. The truth is that this report is a little weak-kneed, people. Based on this summary, no wonder Mueller released it on Friday in the Friday news dump at 5:02 p.m. I expected this report to tell us if they think this dude Trump is guilty or innocent. It does not do that. It does not do that. Instead, it says, here are the facts. You decide. Mueller and Barr have got to testify before Congress to clear some of this up, especially if the report in full is not released. Now, as of yesterday, Bill Barr has acquiesced. Congress has given him a deadline of April 2nd to release the full report without redactions. And Bill Barr says now he's going to release it by mid-April. Congress came back and said, no, we said April 2nd, buddy. And we said the full report, no redactions. He's actually working on redacting it now. But I'm going to make the argument that Congress needs the whole report. And here's why. There are 3 branches of government, and the Constitution says that they are equal. So technically, if Bill Barr does not release this report in full, then it's one branch of government keeping a report from the other branch of government on the activities of the president, which is everybody's concern. It's a matter of public interest. As equal branches of government, the Congress and the Senate, for that matter, have a right, have the power to see the same documents that the president does. If the president is able to keep these documents under wraps, then it's basically one branch of government keeping secrets from the other branches of government. That goes against the equality of the branches. So even if it's a select committee of intelligence chiefs on a committee in Congress, they should be able to see that report because the president's able to see it. Because it involves the president. The president shouldn't be able to keep secrets from other branches of government. They are just as powerful as him, according to the Constitution, which is the governing law of the land. So there's a lot going on here, folks. There's a lot going on here, and you should be concerned. You should be concerned. We got a 4-page summary of perhaps a report that goes up to 1,000 pages that includes all the exhibits and all the attachments and what have you. And the report is rumored to have details in it about the people that Donald Trump's campaign met with, the things they talked about, the things that he lied about while on the campaign. So while he goes around talking about how exonerated he is, he's not really sticking to the truth. But it's okay, right? Because his people are not necessarily there to hear the truth. I want to move on from this rant. And I think I want to do it by playing a little music. So give me some love. Oh, what's up, people? What's up, Lewis? How you doing, Joe? Nice to see you here. Having some technical problems as usual, but we'll overcome those. Thinking about giving out the phone number, but I'm not good enough to work the phones at the same time while I'm talking. So after this music, we're gonna go into reparations a little bit. Oh, Joe. I'm gonna post. I need someone to post this on the Jamal Show webpage when I'm done. As you know, I'm in jail on Facebook. We won't talk about that. Hello, hello, hello. Hello, 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 hello. This is the Jamal Show. Jamal C. right back at you. Thank you for staying with me. I want to talk about some more things, but I do want to say you can reach me at Jamal Show at JamalShowRadio@gmail.com. Also, look for the Jamal Show on Facebook. Please like the page. We could use your support. And we could use your ideas. So anytime that you could even give us a call at 860-218-2173. I want to talk a little bit about reparations because it's been coming up a whole lot. And in the politics of today, in the elections, specifically 2020 presidential candidates like Senator Warren, her former HUD Secretary Julian Castro, Senator Cory Booker, and California Senator Kamala Harris have all in some way said they are in favor of reparations for African Americans and others. This has come up just recently. The thing that disturbs me a little bit is that this hasn't come up before the election, right? I've been watching Elizabeth Warren for a few years now, and I've never heard her mention reparations before. Warren has also decided that Native Americans should be a part of the conversation as well. Maybe this is related to the fact that she considers herself part Native American. I don't know how that relates. Why are they saying this now? I hope not for shallow reasons, because I hadn't heard this talk from politicians before the campaign started. In fact, reparations has been something that hasn't been discussed in recent times that I remember. A 2016 Marist poll showed that only 1 in 4 Americans approved of reparations, but a clear majority of Black Americans backed the idea. And that group is a key demographic for Democrats. In the midterms, Black women played a huge role in giving the House to the Democrats. And heading into 2020, the party is grappling with more direct questions about race and who its platform serves. Now, you can see this prevalent when people like Beto O'Rourke get in and they're asked, do we need another white candidate? I don't necessarily endorse that kind of questioning, to be honest with you. I'd rather look at a man's policies than his skin color, but it is true that minorities have faced, let's say, a minor amount of representation in their government, in what's called representative government. So it is important that, a nice mix of people get to represent people because they want to look like the people they're representing. The people that are Black and minorities in America, whether it be Latinos or Native Americans, they want to feel like their needs are represented too. And that's not necessarily been the case in the history of America. So it becomes an issue, right? Now, me personally, I voted for more white people in my life than Black people. That's probably a function of the fact that most Black people don't run for office, and not as many Black people run for office, but it's still true. And it's true for all Black people that I know. Most have voted for more white people in office than Black people. So it's not like, we see a Black face, we vote for one. I remember Alan Keyes ran. He's a right-wing guy, a Black right-winger who ran in Chicago years ago, and he couldn't win against Barack Obama. So there are policies that matter here. And let's not forget that the first 43 presidents in a row, one of them served twice, so I said 43, were white males. Not even a woman was involved in that. So there's definitely been a lean against representative government in terms of who the population really is in America. So with that said, now that we have a black contingent in the Democratic Party that's really moving things, a lot of people say that black women are the reason why the Democrats won the House again. I guess some of these politicians are trying to fight for the black vote. And so we have Elizabeth Warren, like I said before, Julian Castro, Cory Booker, Kamala Harris. They've all in some way said that they're considering reparations. Now, only 26% of Americans like the idea of reparations, and I actually think that's pretty high for such a controversial subject. But what are reparations? Well, the word reparations is usually interpreted as making financial amends to African Americans for centuries of slavery, racism, and inequality. Why reparations? Well, advocates for reparations point to America's massive racial wealth gap. As of 2016, the median white family had a net worth 10 times as big as the median black family. Let me repeat that. As of 2016, the median white family, that's the average white family, had a net worth 10 times as big as the average black family. Now, all other things being equal, why do you think that is? To address that, Cory Booker is touting, this is one of the ideas, he's touting his baby bonds proposal in which the government puts money into savings accounts for kids, minority kids. That's going to go over well. That policy could substantially shrink the wealth gap, as African Americans are disproportionately on the low end of the income scale, obviously. Now that I've explained the basics, I just want to go into a little bit of my view on reparations. My view on reparations is that I'm hesitant to make a case for reparations because, in my view, America is way too racist for me ever to imagine a way to do that that would be practical, that generally Americans on both sides of the aisles would agree with. It's hard for me to imagine any kind of practical way to do that. Affirmative action in the United States, well, let me say this. The only clever way that I've seen affirmative action dealt with a little bit was the only clever way I've seen reparations dealt with in a good way was affirmative action. And I went through that. I think I was actually a product of affirmative action. I went to college after having dropped out of high school. I went to a pretty good college, but I was qualified. You know, the narrative is that affirmative action recipients are less qualified. That's always kind of been the same, the thing that goes along with it. Oh, you got here because you're black, not because you can do the work or what have you. I could do the work, and most of the people that I know that were in my shoes could do the work. I can't. I went to college in 1991, and the boon of Hillary Clinton, and Bill Clinton, and they were big pushers of affirmative action. Affirmative action actually started with John F. Kennedy in 1961, but it was really supported by Bill Clinton. He spoke about it a lot. He pushed America's universities to accept more blacks, and in that wave, I was accepted to Syracuse University, even having not graduated high school. I didn't have a GED as well. I pretty much talked my way in, and they saw talent and said that I could come in. And actually, I didn't waste it. I got their most prestigious scholarship. I did pretty well there. A lot of my friends did too, and they were under affirmative action as well. And so this whole narrative of affirmative action recipients are not qualified didn't prove to be true, at least in my case. And I believe in a lot of other cases as well. But truth rarely changes the narrative when it comes to black people, because frequently you're dealing with others who don't care whether black people deserve anything or not. They just don't want black people to have anything. Now, reparations is even more controversial than affirmative action was back then because it implies direct financial payments to black people, which is something that a lot of whites really frown on, and I can understand why. But here's the truth. I believe that a country created for the advancement of white males, like this one is, it was created solely for the advancement of white males. If you don't believe me, look back in history, you'll find that blacks couldn't even buy property. White women at one point couldn't even buy property. White women themselves had the fight to vote. They weren't given the right to vote. This country was seen as an escape for white males and a tool for the advancement of white males. That's just how history is. That's the truth. I don't see a country like that still has a long way to go when it comes to race issues, showing such empathy for its former slave class. I just don't see that at this point. And you can still see the silhouette of inequality in the very discussion of reparations. For example, just the other day, I heard a white conservative radio talk show host tackle the subject of reparations. Clearly not the best source, but I'm always struck at how people only focus on the work of slaves in terms of the value lost to our lives. This is what the talk show host said. He said, I don't mind giving reparations to people who actually were slaves, but not many of those people are alive anymore. Tongue-in-cheek humor. Tongue-in-cheek humor. Ha-ha. They aren't alive anymore, so we don't have to pay them. Now, that view is the main narrative in America when it comes to reparations, but it ignores the reality of slavery. As a slave, not only did you work for free, but you were not allowed to own or pass down property to your heirs. If you did manage to get your hands on ownership of property, many times it would have been stolen, scammed, or legislated away from your ownership. Now, when I say legislated, that means that this activity was supported by the United States government. This was supported by courts at the time, they were set up to obtain justice for mostly white men. So nobody black could have an inheritance. In this way, slavery has directly affected me, someone who's never been a slave in the common use of the term. And I say in the common use of the term because the word slavery, the definition of slavery has been expanded over the years, has it not? We call ourselves economic slaves. You call yourself a slave to this, a slave to that, a slave at work. But the real slave, the term slave, the definition where it came from actually has a meaning. Real slaves are born into it. They didn't feel like slaves at work or at this part of the day or when they were being overworked or when someone was getting on their case. They were born slaves and they remained slaves for the rest of their life, no matter what state they went to, up until the Civil War. So if you go back far enough in the title records of any land in America, you will find clauses that disallow ownership of the land by anybody who is black. In fact, the whole state of Oregon was created with an exclusion for blacks. And that was in the original Oregonian Constitution. This aspect of slavery is ignored in the debate because that money is not seen as earned. While many whites are born into the world thinking they've done something to deserve that great big house that was already there when they were born. They deserve that. But black people don't deserve anything that wasn't earned by them. This is the narrative held by many people when it comes to reparations. And I understand also that this is a government that's in debt. So in a list of priorities, a lot of people don't see reparations at the top of it, even if it is justified. And I understand that argument as well. Listen, I'm not really making an argument for reparations here. I'm saying why it's morally correct. But in this country at this time, I don't know how it could be done without actually making things worse. I'll give you an example. Try to tax a millionaire's inheritance now. You'll hear all about the death tax and how they deserve this money. It was their father's and, don't try to take my family's money, right? But in this same way, black people's family's money was taken with help of the law. But, these people deserve it. The fact is that the overwhelming majority of all wealth in this country is inherited. Most people in the upper middle class are in their positions due to what they inherited. Even the black people that are there they've had a head start. Excuse me. So inheritance is not earnings. The way they look down on you and call you lazy, being black, and asking for reparations, when in fact they don't call themselves lazy for inheriting money that none of them earned, that was there before they were born. Same situation. If you go to the Forbes list of the 400 richest people in America, they all think they deserve the money. During the second election or campaign of Barack Obama, he was in a speech. He made a speech where he was like, you didn't build that. He was talking about public roads. And it is true that rich people didn't build those. We all did, right? The people in the Republican Party actually took that and made it into a meme. They made it funny because it was their opinion that they did build that, even if it was inherited. We're talking about different standards here. The Forbes list of the 400 richest people in America, if you ask them, are they heirs? Do you deserve this money? They will all tell you yes. So inheritance plays a huge role in America, except when it comes to black people. Blacks were disallowed to inherit anything for over 100 years. It's not just the value of their work that they missed out on. As a result of discrimination, every generation of black folk had to start from scratch. Let me say that again. Every generation of black folk had to start from scratch on what they earned as a result of discrimination in America. That's never talked about. And it doesn't just affect dead slaves. It affects the future of their very alive children and their children's children. It affects me and my family. But how to implement it? How would we implement something like reparations? Well, I have no idea. Affirmative action was a nice try, though. It was. And it certainly helped me. I think this is a nice time to maybe go into some music. Stop ranting and raving. I'm losing my voice anyway. Want to say hello. What's up to Gail? Some shout outs. This is the Jamal Show. I am Facebook Living this post. And we have a lot of people that are watching right now. Look up the Jamal Show on Facebook.com. Also, we are looking for sponsors. You can contact me at jamalshowradio@gmail.com. Let's play a little music, folks. Oh, boy. Oh. Hey guys, I'm gonna have to recruit like a tech guy here, man, because this is rough. Jerry Magoo, I'm sure that isn't your real name, but I appreciate all your support, man, for real. You're a good guy. You know what I'm saying? Thanks for the positivity, my brother. Lewis John, thanks for watching today. I know we don't agree on everything, but I appreciate you watching anyway. You could be doing other things with your time. And Joe, you know you're my brother, man. We're going to be talking later on today, hopefully. Much love to all y'all. I'm having some technical issues, but I'm gonna keep going forward anyway because nothing's gonna stop me. I'm gonna start taking the phone calls next week, definitely. I'm looking for my opening song so that I can go out with it. Hello, and I'm back. I am back. You are with the Jamal Show with Jamal C. Wright. Thank you for joining me today, this Saturday morning. Join me next week, but I do have something else I want to speak on. I just got to touch on Jussie Smollet for a minute, or Smollett, or whatever you want to call him. Jussie, right, from Empire. This guy who made the report to the Chicago Police Department that he was assaulted on the street because he was black and gay by Trump supporters. Entirely believable, actually, but the way he said the story wasn't really believable. It just didn't make much sense. That was a lot in the news up until about a week ago. Anybody notice that Jussie hasn't been in the news recently? He's been busy. Hey, you remember that old Marine commercial where they say, we do more before 6 a.m. than most people do in their whole entire day? Remember that? Well, that commercial must have been put out by Jussie Smollett's attorneys because they got him off. In this week of quiet, after the grand jury indicted Jussie Smollett on 16 charges related to his alleged lies to the police department about an assault, his attorneys have got him off. Kimberly Fox, and who's the prosecutor in Chicago, also during the R. Kelly case, by the way, a black woman, not that it matters, came out and said that they're dropping all 16 charges. Nobody knows what prompted this. This is totally out of the blue, totally unexpected. Nobody would have guessed this would have happened. But Jussie Smollett is getting off. And he's getting off relatively easily. All he has to do is forfeit his $10,000 bail, which a lot of defendants do when they have to pay back for wrongdoings. And he's actually going to get his case expunged. So in the future, he doesn't even have to report this as an arrest or as a problem. He can act like it never happened. Now, at first, I was ambivalent about this. I felt different ways about this outcome. At first, I asked about justice. But here's the truth, people. The truth is that America generally overpunishes criminal defendants anywhere. You'll find that we criminalize more of our population than most countries in the world. We keep people in jail longer than most countries in the world. We keep people in jail for life with no parole for things that don't even involve murder sometimes. There are people who have stolen a pair of pants. There are people who have stolen $1 and change from a laundromat and ended up in jail for life without parole due to California's 3 strikes law, for example. Just an example. But there are examples like that all over the nation. So, while he got off pretty scot-free, the truth is that America does overpunish its criminal defendants. It's almost like retribution here. So I believe instead of punishing him more, maybe we need to punish everyone else a little bit less. We need to think about that. In any case, back to his case, they got him off. Nobody knows how they did that. I have my theories. My biggest theory is that they begged the prosecutor. They said, look, this is a young black man. He's got a career at stake. And yes, he's a little crazy. We can't even get him to realize what he did was wrong. In fact, he still thinks he told the truth, and we all know he didn't. Now, you're going to make it a lot worse on this man, only because he's unable. They pretty much said he was mentally ill. Can we please let this go and just take the money? And something within Kimberly Fox, the prosecutor, said, okay, I don't want to hang this guy. I got another guy to hang named R. Kelly, who actually did something intentionally for decades that harmed other people. Here, the harm to other people is questionable. Although, there is a lot of money that the police department wasted. We're going to address all that. So he got off, and Kimberly Fox is now saying he can get his record expunged. People are pissed about this, though. The mayor of Chicago is pissed, Rahm Emanuel. The legislature is pissed. They're now talking about introducing into legislation a law to prevent any filming corporation from getting tax breaks from Chicago that employs Jussie Smollet, which means he's going to be blacklisted, at least in Chicago, if this law passes. They're saying that Jussie Smollett shouldn't be able to get anything back from Chicago after what he did. The mayor of Chicago is talking about suing him because the cost to the police department was much more than $10,000. They say it was around $130,000. Not only that, but the law in Chicago allows the city to sue for 3 times the amount that's owed to them for punishment purposes. So they can get as much as $390,000 from Jussie Smollett. All they have to do is prove that the call was a lie, that he lied about the attack. Now, being that the CPD, the Chicago Police Department, says that there's overwhelming evidence to that fact, I think that they'll win that case. Trump is upset too. Trump says that he's going to order the FBI to look into this case. Now, I don't know. I mean, Trump says a lot of things. He's a crime boss. So, you can only take what he says so far. You can't take it to the bank. He says a lot of things that don't come true. He says a lot of things intentionally that aren't true. So who knows if we'll ever hear about that again. I don't even know if the FBI has any jurisdiction over this, to be totally honest with you. He just felt he had to say something and he said it. It's like a garbage disposal. Something has to come out, and that was it at the time. But Trump says I guess he's trying to bring more light to it, that he's outraged. Obviously, Jussie Smollet said his supporters are the ones who were guilty. And I was talking, and there's talk that Michelle Obama got involved in this. How? Well, apparently her former campaign advisor, not a campaign, it was actually her chief of staff, excuse me, which is the second most powerful person next to the principal themselves, made a call on behalf of Jussie Smollett to the prosecutor, expressing that she should be lenient on him. That kind of stuff happens all the time. The thing that upset me about that report is that they kept on using Michelle Obama's name. Like Michelle Obama told her to call. First of all, Michelle Obama is the type to call herself if she wants to support anything, even if it's controversial. She's not afraid of the media or of Republicans or anybody. She wouldn't have a lackey call for her. That's one. I looked all over the internet for any kind of evidence that Michelle Obama was involved in this, and I could not find any. So this is a former chief of staff, 3 years gone. And I guess they just wanted to make the headline something that they had to have people read. So they put Michelle Obama's name in there. But I find no evidence that Michelle Obama had anything to do with this. Furthermore, let me just add that Rahm Emanuel was Barack Obama's chief of staff. So, Rahm Emanuel would have, spoken to Michelle Obama himself about this, to be totally honest with you. Third of all, they don't tend to get involved in situations like this since they've been out of office. So we're pretty sure that Michelle Obama didn't have anything to do with this. It was her chief of staff that called on her own behalf. And we don't even know how much of an effect that had on Kimberly Foxx's decision to drop the case. You know who I'm really concerned about, though? The brothers. The two brothers that he hired to do this, they had to spend like 72 hours in jail. And they did nothing wrong. They had no idea that this was going to be reported as a crime. They had no idea that they were going to be part of anything that was going to be a crime and they'd be exposed on TV. They spent 72 hours in jail. They were harassed by cops. Now, you won't believe this. Jussie is self-righteous, right? His lawyer was on the Today Show just yesterday talking about these brothers are still probably guilty. Oh, well, he said that they were white-faced. They're known to put on white makeup. She's advancing the idea that the brothers put on white makeup to still attack Jussie Smollett. He's still attacking these young brothers. If I were him, I would just shut up. I'd be like, oh, I got off? Thank you very much. Yeah, have a nice day. See you on the next episode of Empire. I'm on the air. Thank you. So if I was Jussie Smollett, I would shut up, right? But no, not him. He's sending his lawyer to the Today Show again to say, oh, these brothers can still be guilty, He doesn't admit any wrongdoing. Hey, no son of his mother would do something like this. Still standing on it. So, and as a result, now the city's going to sue him for $130,000, and it's his fault because he won't shut up. If he shut up, maybe it'll pass. But no. This is all to my point that Jussie Smollett lives in a bubble. He lives in a bubble. He's from an actor's family. How do I know he lives in a bubble? Because no black man I know would ever call the cops for anything they don't need. Not even rich ones. I don't know a black man that calls the cops just to make a story of something. Like that's where the story ends. They don't cross that line. You know what I'm saying? So why he would cause all this to himself, it only proves that he's in a bubble. He still says he was telling the truth. He still thinks he was telling the truth. And he's demanding an apology. If I was those two brothers from Nigeria, I would sue him. And they have every right to sue him. And you know what? In the lawsuit that the city holds against Jussie Smollett, that the truth is going to come out. Truth is going to come out, and it's going to be his fault because he won't keep his mouth shut. That's my advice to Jussie Smollett. Keep your mouth shut, act, sing, and move on. Stop trying to be an activist. Now, interestingly enough, guess who's being nominated for NAACP award? Jussie Smollett. The big question is, will he show up to get it? Or will he show up to see whether he wins? I wouldn't. You've been in the spotlight for a while now. Dude, take a nap for a minute. Let it blow over. It's going to be incredibly ironic, and people are going to laugh at you a little bit if you show up to get an NAACP award. Anthony Anderson is actually hosting the award show, and he says he hopes Smollett wins. I don't know what's going on in this country where we wish good things on people who lie and cheat. I don't know where all these people are getting support. All of a sudden, people in the country want to support people who lie and cheat. Now, I don't have any hatred for Jussie. We all have problems. I'm glad he got off. May all other men that are punished too much get off. But you're gonna try to accept an award? I would take myself from the running. I'd be like, yo, I'd like to excuse myself this year in light of the things that happened. I want the award show to be about the awards that people deserve, not about me and Jussie Smollet and stuff like that. I'm gonna go ahead and skip it, people. You know, y'all have a good time. I'll see y'all next year. That's the way to do it. Is he doing it that way? No. Ladies and gentlemen, this has been the Jamal Show. My name is Jamal C. Wright. Contact me at Jamal Show Radio for ideas. Like me on the Jamal Show on Facebook. We love you listening. We will be back next week with some exciting stuff and probably a guest. I'm trying to get good old Mayor Milner in. I'm friends with Mayor Milner. Hopefully, he was the first black mayor of Hartford. Pretty much first black mayor on the East Coast. I'm going to give him another call this week and see if I can get him in next week so we can talk about some issues. I am very happy to be here with you. Have a beautiful day. This is the Jamal Show signing out. Hey guys, thanks for watching, man. That was rough.